Traffic is the number one KPI that I do not like because I can show you traffic all day long. That doesn't mean that you're getting form fills or phone calls. I think in the post AI world, it's not just about links. It's also brand mentions and being everywhere. If you want to survive in marketing 2026, you have to be excellent. You have to have a sense of urgency. Biggest thing advice that I could give you is you're not an expert until you can teach it. So pushing your people to teach their individual specialty is going to make them become just excellent at the service.
Rob Timmermann, founder and CEO of the Timmermann Group. It's great to have you on eCoffee with Experts. Welcome.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here, Austin.
Yeah, me too. And I don't know what it is about St. Louis agencies, but you guys really know how to grow a strong, solid business. Now, although you're a full service, full stack agency, what are you focused on these days? And maybe how has that shifted over the last 12 months?
Yeah, great question. We're primarily focused on SEO, and that's really what we're known for here locally and nationally. So we have those services that support SEO, pay-per-click, conversion-based websites, content development, all that. But really, we are an SEO-led agency with those other supporting services.
Okay, cool. There's the common phrase in marketing, which is just follow the funnel, like go down the funnel. You have a little bit of a different approach to that, and you've almost productized the way that you see funnel development. And I'll let you correct me on how you guys see it at Timmermann Group.
Yeah, for sure. So, everything used to be full funnel, right? Like that was like the cool thing to do there was the full funnel approach. But, after thinking about it, it was kind of just like dropping them off at the end of that funnel. And that's not how I look at relationships. So we moved into a flywheel method for various different reasons. So number one, we typically like to work with clients who are doing pretty well and they want to go from good to great to glorious. And the flywheel just made a lot more sense because we weren't doing all of those services throughout all of the different levels of demand, but we could apply force with things like SEO, pay-per-click, like those types of key services, and then remove friction with things like CRO, conversion-based websites, anything that could make their flywheel move faster.
Yeah, so I think the main difference that I'm perceiving is instead of dropping them off at the sale point, that's only halfway through the cycle, let's say.
Yeah, 100%. Like the initial sale should just be the beginning of it, whether you're B2C or B2B. Hopefully you have that customer client, whatever you call them for a long, long time.
Yeah, we're not.
Funnel just seemed like it was dropping them off and then that's it.
We're not closing the deal. We're opening a relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that perspective. And when it comes to clients, how have you seen client sentiment? Like you serve as B2B and B2C and you deal with, the CEOs, the founders, the marketing directors. You're dealing with a lot of decision makers. Have you seen anything change in terms of their approach, their desires, their concerns over the last 12 months, let's say because of the post-AI era?
Oh, yeah. So I would say the intensity has been multiplying probably year over year since probably COVID. So that is the speed that you deliver, the excellence that you deliver it in, the quality, the quantity. And with AI, it was, they know that you can do it faster and you should be doing it faster and maybe doing more of it. So it's not just the quality that they want increased, it's also the quantity and how fast you can do it. Lots of big changes. I feel like every year I tell our team it's time to strive for excellence and increase the intensity.
Yeah, you want a team that reflects the glorious of your clients before they get them there, right?
Yeah, you can't be talking all that and then fail to deliver yourself.
Yeah. So how do you instill that sense of excellence in your team? Do you have guiding principles, or what's that like internally to client facing?
Yes. So we do have a guiding principle called conversions, not diversions. So I'll get into that a little bit more later if we can. But really, we have to have continuing education. There are different people in your team that are going to exceed in different areas. And I think letting them have the soapbox and the podium and teach other team members what they know, I think that makes everybody part of it, right? Otherwise, it's just like you up there as the owner, or department lead or whatever it is, just kind of, doing the deal, which gets to be monotonous. So I think you got to bring people into the fold. You definitely have to have continuing education resources. So pay for courses, books, seminars, all that type of stuff is great. But I would say the biggest thing that advice that I could give you is you're not an expert until you can teach it. So pushing your
Mm,
people to teach their individual specialty is going to make them become just excellent at the service.
mm. Yeah, I love that. And there's this I've been hearing a lot like hire A players. Like you want to bring people in who have experience, but on the other side, there's some people who say hire for attitude and teach skill. Do you have sort of a balance, or how do you approach bringing new team members in?
Yeah, excellent question. So I think that there is a balance, and I wouldn't say like in today's environment, there's not a lot of room for the middle ground.
Hmm.
So you are either a entry level person that is super eager and wants to learn it, or you are a superstar. But I
Mm,
think that that kind of middle of just surviving until Friday is really getting squashed by AI and just the demand for excellence and all that, because they can do that kind of medium grade work on their own, or they at
yeah.
least think they can, and they'll give it a shot. So yeah, I think you gotta, if you want to survive in marketing 2026, I just had my talk with my team about this. You have to be excellent. You have
Mm.
to have a sense of urgency. You're not just going to get by cruising and staying underneath the radar.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great way to put it. It's like you're stand out or get out, I think is the
100%. 100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
yeah. And with founders and agency owners that I've talked to, managing people and instilling that sense of urgency is difficult if they don't make the hire correctly the first time. And what ends up happening is the need to be liked ends up overpowering the need to succeed in the business. Now, obviously, if they're on the very, you bring in a new hire and they're just underperforming and they're not being a team player and they don't have the attitude, it's pretty easy to cut ties. But how do you approach the performance improvement plan or like the disciplinary measures in order to bring someone who's slightly underperforming, right? They're not on the ends, they're not on the ends of the spectrum,
Yep.
but they're pretty close to being an A player. How do you get them to pick up and get their butt in gear?
Yeah, you can't really force somebody to have a sense of urgency. They need to have it inside them. You can
Mhm.
maybe inspire it, but you can only lead a horse to water so many times.
Mm.
So, I think doing the kind of continuing education and supporting them is great, but you have to set them up for success, but you also have to set them up for performance, and whether that's good or bad. And hopefully you're not doing that performance on your top tier client. Maybe you're doing that performance in front of the team. But if they're not rising up to their peers, if they're not rising up to those occasions, like they're probably not going to. So what is the place for them in your agency? And like I said, like it's probably not there in 2026.
Yeah. I've been a part of several different business development and sales teams. And there was one team that I was on that kind of rubbed me the wrong way at first because their perspective was we don't really think in terms of your capacity. We think if you feel like like your plate is full, our mindset is that you're not busy enough. In order to achieve high performance, in order to achieve excellence, you almost have to have too much on your plate. And that forces you to prioritize and execute at a high level. I'm curious what your thoughts are in terms of capacity and that sort of a mindset.
Yeah, I don't think you become excellent being stretched too far. You have to have some of these, practice days and performance days.
Mm,
And if you're just maxed to the gills, when is your time to improve? So you need to have a little bit of that yin and yang. And
mhm,
don't get me wrong, like a pivotal moment in my career was when I worked on Saturday.
mm,
I finally figured like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing to the level that I want to be at. So how am I going to find that time? How am I going to find some peace and quiet to actually
mhm,
have the time to think, process, experiment, learn?
mm,
And a lot of times that was on Saturday morning. And not that I do that every morning, and I don't, expect my team to do it, but just that type of mentality of maybe it's
Mhm.
early morning, maybe it's Saturday morning, maybe it's Sunday, but you got to have some time to think to get better. You just don't go out and run the race. You've got to
Mhm.
practice running. You got to practice your form, get coached, all that.
Mhm. Yeah, and I can really appreciate hearing that perspective. I'm reading a really good book right now. It's called Why We Sleep. And I have a bookshelf behind me, and there's two books that have, I could say, you and I have read a bunch of business books, a bunch of marketing books, a bunch of leadership books. I feel like leaders are kind of junkies in that way. But the two books that have made the most impact on my life is one, the one I'm reading right now, Why We Sleep, and the other one is called Rest. And
Cool.
it's really like, man, I never realized how much impact the space between activities had on performance. So I
Right.
can appreciate you saying that. Personal question, what's your sleep cycle like?
I would say it varies. I would say I like to be a 5 a.m. person, but I wouldn't say that's my core.
Yeah.
But I'm at my best when I'm running at that level.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's a daily discipline to make that happen.
Yeah, you're trying to shoot for 8 hours, I think like we all are, but man, that is the hardest part. That's the biggest challenge of, being a leader, running an organization is like being on peak performance means you're well rested and ready to
Right.
attack the day. Yeah.
Right. For sure. For sure.
Speaking of being ready to attack and adapt and change and iterate, what are there any sort of like, not to say magic bullets or silver bullets or secret strategies to really show visibility in LLMs and the rise of generative engine optimization, but how are you thinking about post AI SEO?
Well, I think I'll kind of give you like how I arrived at this. Okay. So I think I was a little bit like a lot of people that I see where they're just weathering the storm or, is SEO going to be around? I was just kind of like taking it on the chin a little bit. But
Mm.
I did have a friend of mine stop by who's big in the SEO space, Nathan Gotch, and he kind of told me stop whining, for lack of better words, and he said embrace it. And since I did, it's really opened up my entire eyes to it. So I was just lacking that embracing of it, and I was kind of like, where's SEO going to go? Should I sell the agency at this time? All those
Mm.
thoughts that entrepreneurs are going through right now who own SEO agencies are heavily involved in leadership teams with them. But yeah, it was just embracing it. And then when I embraced it, boom, it was just like reignited fire, fireworks going off. And now it's more about SEA, search everywhere optimization, which is what it's been all about from the start.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if it was never just all about Google, even though that's like a major percentage about it. Ranking on DoorDash, Yelp, like you name it, it's all, complete search everywhere optimization.
And depending on the client, optimizing their map ranking, their like local 3-pack or
Yeah.
um yeah, there's different obviously strategies to go down. With SEO, I mean there's three pillars and you can only go so far with content, I think you've said before. So
Yeah.
how are you thinking about the other two pillars, having a sound technical foundation? I'm asking, is there anything specific about the technical foundations of the website and the schema? And then we'll go into the offsite authority piece.
Yeah, I would say like the biggest thing with the website for me when it relates to SEO is the information architecture.
Hmm.
And I love that piece. Like I can spend time in there forever.
Mm,
If you don't have the pages that are going to rank, you're not that what's to rank. And if there's confusion in those pages of what's going to shine, what's going to support that, it gets very messy, right? So like I love the information architecture phase. I think that is the core of it. And then you need to build the content and everything on top of those pages and develop a proper website.
yeah. What I'm hearing is you're talking about like, is there anything you're doing to rethink structural hierarchy? And then how do you approach internal link building strategy, like internal linking strategies?
Yeah, I'm not a writer, but I'm trying to be.
Uh huh. We'll
and
get into that next.
and I have been trying to be for years, and I've come a very, very, very long way. But I'm always re-engineering content and the
Hmm.
different levels of it in my head. So, today I think you can get by with a high level informational piece, but maybe that's supported by or funnels up to transactional pillars and sub pillars and all of that. But yeah, it's kind of it's something that I reinvent all the time, testing, seeing if it works. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, I've had good success kind of with those transactional pages, supporting transactional pages, large piece of pillar content still, even in this day of
Hmm.
AI overviews, still doing that and then supporting informational pages below it. I think that
Hmm.
still wins.
Yeah, I think so too. And what we've seen, because we obviously at DWS we do a lot of testing as well, for a bunch of our clients, and what we've seen actually pull up LLM visibility is when you do have those larger informational pieces of content, even though maybe somebody is not going to sit there and read a 3,000 word article. What we found is actually those 2,000, 3,000 word longer pieces that are structured in such a way that is optimized for LLMs, even with a table of contents, that typically is, on our test, that's what gets pulled in. Somebody's not going to go to the article and read it top to bottom, but an LLM is lazy enough to find the headlines and connect the dots.
Yep. Yep. For sure.
Yeah.
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 I think just if you look at it like we always should be looking at it, not just, from dedicated SEO lens or SEO first, but serving your audience.
Mhm.
So, serving my audience, what does that mean to me as an agency owner and to my team? Well, it definitely means our clients. It sometimes means our clients' clients. It means people who are interested in working with us, like being on our team. It's content for our team. Sometimes I'm writing pieces of content for clarity so I understand it more. So I
Mhm.
give that to my team to educate them. So it's a constant process of that. But I think you writing for your audience and covering that, being that Wikipedia of whatever your product or service domain is the key to success.
Mm. Yeah, having really strong foundations, and actually internally, one of the initiatives that I'm working on right now is to put together the DWS Business Development Handbook. And where all of this, where this concept and where this idea started is sales and marketing they were having different definitions of certain terms that we couldn't agree on. And I was like, okay, this needs to be documented. So I started with a dictionary. Like, how do we define all of our internal terms so
Right.
it's, standardized?
Yep.
And then building out upon that, because that's the level of clarity that we need to have
Yep. Yep.
in these days.
Love it. And we kind of did something similar with a glossary. The whole
Hmm.
reason I started the glossary was not necessarily for our clients, so we were clear on what the terms were, so we could speak to it perfectly. And when you start studying those nuances, right? All the acronyms and what's this versus this, you get a lot of clarity in that. And I've learned so much just by doing that myself. And now what do we have? Now we have these tools that we can give out to different prospects, clients, our team members, whatever, that kind of speak to that. So yeah, kind of like the same dictionary thing, just going public with it.
Yeah, I love that. And what a great opportunity to create top of funnel content, lead magnets, calculators, all of that. Something that serves the internal team is definitely going to serve who you serve as a
Right.
result.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, what a talk about killing two birds with one stone. So, okay, we've covered the content piece. We have the technical foundations. We have some hierarchy and internal structuring. Tell me about the third leg. We have offsite authority. What are you seeing showing up in GEO? I guess how are you thinking about that in the post AI world?
So you're only going to get so far with content. So you can write pages all day long and just be the complete topic, entity, coverage, the Wikipedia of your domain, but everyone can do that as well. So where's the differentiator at? So
Hmm.
you can have your content, but you also need to promote your content. So promoting your content is getting people to link to it. So reaching out to editors, asking if they will link back to your content, usually getting 99 no's for one yes. And
Hmm.
I think in the post AI world, it's not just about links, it's also brand mentions and being everywhere. I think the noisiest brands are going to survive in the post AI world.
Hmm.
So, you got somebody who is, and even on paid platforms, you're all over this or that, Yelp, whatever, all the lists, all the publications. So the more that you can be out there and be noisy, backed with your standard SEO practices of acquiring links and all that, the more you're going to succeed.
Yeah, I love that concept of the noisiest brands are the ones who are going to pull ahead. I think
Right.
you're right, but again, it's not all about just the quantity of links you get. And we know that like DR, DA, and even some traffic, like this stuff can be manipulated, although yeah, there's that's a whole can of worms. Yeah, I guess what metrics are you looking at right now in terms of like sound, solid, high quality link building?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. They can be manipulated. So I think it's very easy to look at their backlink profile. I like to see traffic, but
Mhm.
all of that can be manipulated. But I think traffic is a pretty good factor. I think trust is a big factor as well. If it
Mhm.
looks like you could give them $50 and they would put a link on anything, that's probably not the neighborhood that you want to associate with. So I think there's a lot of relationships and trust. Link building is basically like PR, right? Like,
Mhm.
how can we do it? How can, you do it, Austin?
Mhm.
Because we have the relationships. We can just pull the lever and say, like, hey, remember me? Can we write about this thing? It'd be great, for your blog on this. Where if you don't have that and you are just a CMO that doesn't know SEO and you're taking in the 1,000 emails that you and I get every day about, you want a link, you want a link, you want a link. I mean, you don't know
Mhm.
what those are, where they're from. And those people that are sending you them probably don't care.
Yeah.
So it's
100%.
a super risky business. But you mentioned quality a little bit, versus quantity. I mean, I'll have some prospects that call me up about SEO and they'll say, hey, it's not working, but we have link acquisition covered. We're getting
Mm.
75 DRs for $100. I'm like, okay, you gotta really know the landscape and the reality of it and know market price and what's a bunch of fluff as well. Because the
Yeah.
last thing you want to go through is being in a manual penalty, being in a algorithmic penalty, and plus those trust signals are just not good for your audience.
Yeah. We're looking at site context. We're looking at how contextual and how recent the site has posted about the content, about the keywords that we're looking to target. So
Yeah.
a little bit more difficult to measure, in terms of like how relevant is this, how,
Yeah.
what's the content overlap. But yeah,
Yeah, it's like a human review of it and not just batch analyzing a bunch of domains that you're sent.
exactly. Exactly. I completely agree. Speaking of building trust, building authority, one of the best ways to do that is to become an author. Tell us about the book that you are writing. Who's it for? What's the premise?
Well, I'm writing this book called SEO for CEOs, and it's really because I want to break down what SEO is so the CEO can understand it. There's just so much confusion about that. Like, I think a lot of times your typical CEO thinks SEO is pay per click, and you
Hmm.
could like, let's work on this part of the site and not this and turn it off and on. And I just really want to top to bottom so they can understand it to the point of being confident about choosing an agency. It's not going to be about, keyword density and all those types of, those items that could or could not go into it in today's world. But just
Hmm.
like a top to bottom kind of SEO for CEOs. Okay, I understand what it is. I understand why it's important and I understand what it can do for my business and understand how to get it and then how to measure if it's successful.
And also understand that you should probably hire a professional like the
Yes.
Timmerman Group.
Yeah, someone, yes, for sure. Someone that's done it before that, is ranking themselves at least for something,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Because I think trying to put an in-house team together to do it, that's a tough deal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a tough deal.
Yeah. Uh, gosh, I want to ask you about partnerships, but I think where I'd like to kind of, and I'm being conscious of time, where I'd like to kind of end the conversation is talking about deal flow and where clients are coming from. Traditionally, I mean, historically, agencies are reliant on word of mouth. They're reliant on, their referrals.
Mhm.
Have you seen a shift in deal flow by source, or I guess what's that look like for you guys?
I'd say we've seen a shift on it, but I had a similar shift during COVID as well. But a lot of those are because of levers that I'm pulling.
Mm,
So I went super hard on SEO nationally when COVID hit because, I'm based in St. Louis, Missouri. Yeah, it's a decent sized city, right? But I didn't think that there was enough people during COVID to keep our team employed. So
hmm.
I marketed harder, right? And now, the economy's been a little choppy here last year, market harder.
Hmm.
So I would say like our number one lead source became ChatGPT. I would say, like in this back half of 2025. And that's
Wow.
because we really focused on it, but we also just slammed on the gas on SEO as well, and
Yeah.
just full spectrum, website improvements, content, links, the whole deal,
Hmm.
the whole deal.
Wow, that's really interesting to hear that, an LLM or ChatGPT has become one of the I'm gonna say one of the primary sources because I'm sure it fluctuates on a month-to-month basis, but
Right.
man, I know there are a lot of agency owners who wish they were in your position. They're, like, trying to crack the code of how do we become more visible. Do you have any sort of any sort of insights or like, "Man, if I could only do 1 or 2 things, only 1 or 2 levers to pull," what are you telling?
Would say go super hard on capturing demand. And that's because that's the easiest deal that you're going to close besides a referral.
Mm,
So if somebody already has demand created, if it's out there, if there's people searching for what you are offering, all you have to do is show up where they're looking and reverse engineer where they're looking. Is it on the LLMs? Is it on Google? Is it on DoorDash? Whatever.
mm.
But find out where they're looking and just show up in that space. That's the biggest lever that you can pull.
Mhm. So it almost sounds less top of funnel, if you will, less beginning of the flywheel in your language, and more on like the transaction, commercial type of keywords, that sort of a content.
Yeah, for sure. I'll see a lot of times with clients we look at, they've hired an SEO agency and their entire content is top of funnel. And they're wondering like
Mm,
why they're not winning,
mm,
right? Well, you don't have any transactional pages besides your homepage.
mm,
It's just a blog of information, that's for your audience, which is great for that top of funnel. But like you got to maximize out that bottom of funnel and then work your way up.
mm. Yeah, and I think maybe people are scared of that, because it's more competitive, it's pricier the closer you get to the bottom of the funnel. But you're saying, if you had to choose, like, take the risk, take a big swing and go in on these, because that's what's gonna make you money. Like, yes,
Yeah.
maybe it's cheaper to start and move somebody down the funnel, but man, if you can just swing the bat
Yeah.
at the
That's
bottom of the funnel, yeah.
that's what's going to move the needle. That's scarier in various different ways. I mean, number one, that's where it happens. So it either
Yeah.
happens or it doesn't. It's
Mhm.
not generating demand, top of funnel. Like you
Mhm.
either produced revenue or you didn't. And that's scary for an agency. So they might play in that top of funnel. Like we do SEO. What do you do? Well, we create 10 blogs a month. I mean, that's not SEO. They're
Yeah.
charged 1,000, 1,500 bucks, 2,500 bucks sometimes for that and not getting any traction out of it. But they're not held to that standard, right? They're
Mm.
not held to that standard of creating a conversion.
But Rob, our traffic is increasing.
Yeah, traffic is the number one KPI that I do not like
Yeah.
because I can show you traffic all day long. That doesn't mean that you're getting form fills or phone calls.
Yeah. 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 I love it. And it can be a rough mindset shift if you're, basically playing it safe at the top of the funnel and, that's what you're charging for. Like if you put the feet to the fire and say, "Hey man, we got to look at instead of KPIs of traffic and impressions, we got to look at conversions or, CTR."
Yep.
Like, man, it separates the wheat from the chaff, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a place for content agencies, and I'm not talking even about them at this, but
Mhm.
when you position yourself as an SEO agency and you're just providing that top of level content, I mean, let's be honest, you know what you're doing. You're just
Yeah.
playing a waiting game of how long you can keep the retainer. It's not like it's going to produce any results.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got something that we really strive for here, which is conversions, not diversions.
Mhm.
Conversions, like I said, form fills, phone calls, could be direct email sales,
Mhm.
e-com sales. But a diversion is more, okay, we've got organic traffic, we've got page views.
Yeah.
That's not going to pay the bills.
Yeah. Doesn't stuff the stockings, if you will.
Doesn't stuff the stock. Right, right.
Rob, where can we learn more about you and about your team and about what you guys are up to in 2026?
We can find us on our website. That is wearetg.com. There's a great blog there. There's a glossary there. There's tons of bottom of the funnel target page content pages that rank on Google everywhere. But also, you can find me personally on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there. Probably not as active as I should be, but just trying to pitch value wherever I can. And a lot of times that comes organically just with the conversations that I've had.
Love it. Well, thanks for being here on eCoffee with Experts. I really appreciate the perspectives that you've brought, not just in like what's happening in marketing, but also internally at the agency and how to be as a leader and how to guide people through. Because at the end of the day, yes, there's new technologies, new AI, new algorithms shifting all the time, but at the end of the day, it is still about how we experience life. And I appreciate you for being a leader and guiding people through this tumultuous time, if you will.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.